What's up, Ivy?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see
Friends and
you,
family,
Ivy.
this is the homie Ivy Bromius. She is the
Hey.
bomb.com. Don't go to the bomb.com to find her. Go to circlethrice.com. But
Oh,
she is the best, the most
that,
bestest.
Oh,
that was the smoothest. That was really nice. I like that. That was really,
yeah,
really
I'm
good.
impressed. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. Zamboni, it's been a long time since I've seen you. Brian, it's not been a long time since I've talked to you,
No.
but it's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Well, part of it, Ivy, like you're a fun chat. That's why we want to talk to you, but also because when we talk about like what if magic was real, like you do a
What
lot of
if?
what if magic is real kind of thinking and a lot of, trying to puzzle out the kind of like job magic, agile magic, project managing magic, the kind of the economics magic, the kind of stuff we like to get into after we do lots of silly things along the way. So,
Excellent.
During
so I
hopefully the silliness doesn't go away. You know what I mean?
no, no,
I,
no,
wa-
it
I
doesn't
want
go.
to stay silly, even if that
I
means foolish as well.
sacred fools. I wanted to know how everybody's eclipse went because mine was on the money and I did not like it.
Mm. It, quite literally on
Shocker.
the money, huh?
Yeah, no, it was, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I'll start. I'll let you guys think a little bit. But so my eclipse, the Libra eclipse is in my second house, where I have a whole bunch of Saturn and Mars shit going down anyway. And this eclipse cycle has been very clearly about my work, my job, getting money, right? Figuring out. And this one, like, I have had nothing but work this week. Like the so much so that the kid is like, "Are you okay?" like when your 10-year-old's checking on you, you know. And it's very clearly the message I was getting earlier from the earlier eclipse was like, "Hey, you're in a cycle. It's like 2 to 3 years. You just got to put your head down and plow, man. Like that's what this is. If you want to make money, it's fine, but don't plan to have a social life. Like get in and dig." And so right on the eclipse, we'd had like I just got back from a trip to Oregon. Things are nice. Things are good. Been seeing people, and it was like reminder.
Everything is fine. Everything is good. And then suddenly,
Yeah,
bam, right?
you need to get to work. you know. So, but it wasn't like it wasn't disastrous or anything. Work is good. This is helping me achieve my dreams. This is stuff I want to do. This is a deal I've cut.
But a
Right.
lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a
Mm.
reminder that it's not going to be a free pass. You know, like because I am naturally optimistic. I presume that everything will get easy all of a sudden whenever I want it to. Uh, turns out that's not.
Indeed, this is what magic is for, right?
It is what magic is for, and I'm gonna get on that too. But I wanted to know, like, did you guys have any sort of similar Insta eclipse insights? Like, did stuff happen to you guys during the last couple of days?
Hit it, Ivy.
Well, okay, so you got hit. You're getting hit with these in the second and the eighth, right?
Yeah.
The one in Libra is the second, but the one that's coming up is the eighth, and now we're in the in-between period. So it's all about your resources and other people's resources,
hmm
how they connect, right?
Stealing. Yeah.
So
Stealing.
I'm a Libra rising. Excuse me, I'm a Leo rising. I'm a double Leo. I have all the Leo, and that means it's the third and the ninth for me, right? So
Well,
wait, I got that backwards. No, this thing, this it's God. So for me, it is the second and the eighth. So you're a Libra rising, a Leo
no,
rising.
no. I'm
No,
a Leo 12th house.
you're a
No,
Leo
I think you
12.
had it right.
Oh, I know, I got it
You were
right.
right.
So
If you
you're the
got
Third
two
and
if
and
you
the
got
eighth, and
Leo
I'm the three
rising,
and the ninth. Yes, sorry.
yeah, you're good.
I'm great time with this. Wow, aren't you guys glad you invited me? So for me, it's all about like the things in your neighborhood and then the connections you make far away. And so I am noticing that, right? I'm noticing like I have the long-term house guest right now hanging out, and I've been connecting with people kind of in my social networking here. And there's been there's stuff happening, right, in my local environment.
Mm.
So I'm definitely sensing it, but I think that the trick with the eclipses is that it's not just so like there's the day, but then there's this 2 week period and then the day again, right? So you get this in between the two cycles.
yeah. Do you have natal planets in Libra and Aries?
No, I don't have anything. I don't have, well, my nodes are there. So,
Oh,
no,
your natal nodes
no,
are
no,
there.
no. No, I don't have
Ooh.
anything there. That took me a second. I got nothing.
It's just
Sure.
one cosmic hallway, just with wind blowing through it, just from the third
Yeah.
to the ninth. Just
Sure. Well, so this is very astrologer good also. So like
yeah,
if you don't have too much going on there and those are Caden houses for you, those are like just kind of like they're there, the neighborhood, things are locally happening, but like shit's not really going down for you specifically. It's not really
Mhm.
hitting you. Whereas Brian, you've got stuff in
got
Libra,
shit.
right?
Yeah. I got Saturn, Mars, and Pluto hanging out in Libra, all
Mm-hmm.
all tightly
That's very
packed.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah. And ruling shit also.
Yes.
So
Also,
there's
yeah,
like,
ruling Saturn ruling the entire fucking chart, and yeah, just so yeah. I no, I mean that's that like what is it? The meat grind, not the meat grinder, but like it's that grind people to dust thing in the Vedic astrology. I can't forget what
hmm.
it's called when you get the Saturn and Mars
Oh
together, and
yeah. Yama
I will
yoga?
destroy
I don't
something.
remember.
I will destroy my own money. I'll destroy other people's money. I'll destroy, like if it's not properly focused, something is going to get ground to dust. You just kind of got to
Sure.
turn that tank, to the right angles. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but
Most
So,
fixes this way.
so what
but yeah,
about you, Zamboni?
yeah. What about you?
What do you got going on in Libra?
Yeah, well, so I have Venus in Libra, Venus rules Libra, and I have Mars in Aries, Mars rules Aries, and that is the 4th and 10th, respectively. So,
So sorry.
um,
My deepest condolences, thoughts and prayers.
yeah, well, so it's a lot. It is
Yeah.
definitely it's a turn up moment. So I was really interested about this because it's in the 4th, it's South Node in the 4th, and so I have an apartment now. And it's the first time I've like had fairly stable housing, maybe in my adult life, like ever since I left my childhood home. Like this is the most stable that it's been ever. And so I saw these eclipses coming and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to like move. Which is what I would
Right.
think with South Node, like releasing, getting rid of things, decrease in the home area of the chart. I would think like maybe you're going to move homes or something like
Right.
this, right? And so that's not what I wanted. I was like, oh man, I don't know about all this. But I've also had rising discontent in my area. Like it's my
Mm,
hometown and it's full of the people who didn't make it out to hometown. And it's
yeah.
just like the cultural vibe doesn't resonate very well with me. And so I visited a tarot reader and she told me to move to Puerto Rico. So
Boom.
am
It's
I going to do
nice.
that? We'll see.
It's
That's
nice
actually not
specific.
true. She told
In
me
the
to move to
next 2 weeks,
Tennessee.
maybe not.
Wait. Whoa, wait. No. Hold on. Wait. I don't know if you're aware or not, Zamboni, but Tennessee and Puerto Rico are not the same place.
Well, okay. So she started out she started out telling me not to move north. She spent
Okay.
what I thought was a fairly inordinate amount of time being like, don't go north. And I think that what she was trying to do, she knows that I've got history in New York City. And so I think
Right.
she was trying to dissuade me from going to New York.
Sure.
And which I had already decided that I wasn't going to go back to New York. So I've been thinking about what to do. And then she was like, move south, like go somewhere where it's warm, where there's
Mm.
water. I don't know why it's in my head. How about Tennessee? And I was like, I've been thinking about Puerto Rico. And she was like, yep.
Yeah, because Tennessee, while warm, not particularly known for like water. Like it's a
Right. Well, they've
mountain,
got a port there, right? Is Nashville a port city?
like on a river, not like water
Not
water.
sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's like
Right.
Rivers are water.
no,
I
they're not
mean,
water. That's not real water. I grew up on the ocean. This is not real water. That's like
Right. If you can
yeah,
see to the other side, it's a
yeah,
different game.
yeah, and
so
it makes me
Brian has
nervous.
water snobbery.
I do. I do have a lot of water snobbery, actually. I'm very picky,
Well,
although
we
I'm
are
not as
we are
bad
many
as
things on this show, and bougie definitely qualifies.
that's
We
what
are
I bring. I bring the bougie energy to this show.
I mean,
Puerto Rico sounds awesome. We gotta
and
set you up with Natalia and what she says.
so shout out to Natalia who did the tarot
Yeah.
reading for me.
Oh, that
She
was a, wait,
gives
so
bomb ass
Natalia
tarot
told you?
readings. Go go to what natalia-lee.com, get a tarot reading because she is the bomb. She is the fucking
Also
bomb.
agreed. Also one of my regular tarot readers. Like if I'm having cards pulled, I hit Natalia up. Yep.
Word. Yeah, I rarely get readings and consultations that I feel satisfied by.
Yeah.
Um, I just like have trouble. I don't necessarily know what I want to know sometimes. And I'm just like, and I read for people all the time. And it's hard for me to like sit on the other side sometimes. And it's a whole thing. But anyway, I went to go see Natalia and shit was great. Came out being like, oh, I know. Like I felt relief afterward. But same way, just like you, it looks like a lot of fucking work. It looks like
Yeah.
some shit is gonna have because I gotta tie up what I'm doing here. I got some music happening. I'm trying to, like I gotta think about internet work if I'm gonna be moving
Yeah.
around this kind of way. Like all so like, and there's a deadline on it now. So because she asked my age, and when I told her, she was like, "Oh, you gotta go right now."
This is part of Natalia starting a Puerto Rico cult. That's what's happening. This is some like there's some magic attached to this.
So every time you get a
so.
reading, it's like Puerto Rico sounds good for you.
Yeah, it's weird. She told me the same thing. I should move to Puerto Rico. It's straight. No, actually, Natalia gave me one of my favorite readings ever, which was about my, at the time, not quite finished, but definitely impending divorce. And at the final card came down, and it was 10 of Swords. And she looked at it, and we both looked at each other, and we both knew exactly what it meant. We both knew this was done. But she was like, "All right, maybe it just means the end of conflict." She was trying so hard.
We did that with, or somebody did that with the Power 8 one time, right? They in Lynn McTaggart's book where they did the Power 8 to do a miracle. There's a conflict in South Asia
East
or something
Timor.
like that, and it was the East Timor. They intended for no more fighting in the region, and one side crushed the other.
Just like crushed and massacred.
Right. What you ask for, right?
Yeah.
Totally. So the end of conflict came.
It did. Conflict's done.
Yeah.
She wasn't wrong. But but the sweetness of that moment of where like when you're the reader and you know it's really bad and you know what it says and you do want to say what it says, right? You're not, because she was right. She didn't cut the thing. But at the same time, she was like, I don't want to just say this as the end. You know what I mean? I don't want to just like crush this person. I want to give them something to work with, which I think is good magic. Like I don't think that like the hardest read is always the best thing to tell somebody. I think
so. Here's what happened to me earlier today. Yeah. I was doing a reading for somebody, and I got a set of cards that looked ugly to me, and I let my face go for just a second. And then like I regrouped. I had to like there was something I was like at the job, and so there was a plate, and then I like went and grabbed the plate and changed the thing, right, and then sat back down, and then she was ready. She was like, "Uh-oh." Right. She had a moment to like compose herself. And then that gave me I could shoot straight after that.
Right. I mean, do you do like readings for folks much these days? Like I know you do like the consulting stuff, but like do you like read?
So card readings were the first thing I ever offered, like back in the day. I think like 2015, if that's not embarrassing enough. And I did it for a while, and it always takes a lot out of me. Like I do these very like large, elaborate readings, and then they're like very intense. And so now I only do it for my long-term clients. So like the clients I work with can get sort of like free readings, and I like that much better because I could just toss some cards, and then we'll have a session and talk out the results. And and I've had a couple lately, and these are always fun to deal with. I've had a couple lately where people are trying to make a decision, right? They're like, I could do A or I could do B, right? And so I throw some cards and for A, and I throw some cards for B, and I'm kind of looking for a shit one. I want one of them to be really bad so that I can be like, definitely A. B is all the tower and the swords. That's terrible. But they're like, both are fine. And I'm like, sorry, but well, pick one. Both are okay.
Yeah.
So.
The geomancy stuff, there are ways. One of the things I've been working a lot with recently there is the sort of like cross conditions remediation through geomancy, right? So in that way it's set up, any of the things can be a way of removing crosses. So even the bad answers, right? The figures that are negative can be applied as a medicine. Classic example, Rubius, the overturned cup, the red, is famously good for bloodletting. So it's a case of like if that comes up as the medicine for getting rid of the cross conditions, like you need to make a sacrifice, you need to do something like this, right? Um, and I've been really enjoying the harder answers to how do you get out of cross conditions. Geomancy is very practical. Like a lot of times it's like leave. It's like man, work sucks. I'm always hitting this stuff. I feel like I'm in cross conditions all the time. What does it say? It's like go away. Like don't do that anymore.
Super practical, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You ask the question, what's the best way to end this? Don't be there. you know?
I don't do geomancy, but I have one of my local community does geomancy, and so that means that I can occasionally get geomancy if I wanted, and it is super practical. I actually really I don't do it, but I'm really appreciative of it because it's always just very blunt, right?
Mm.
And it's
Yeah.
got that I Ching kind of vibe to it, where it's like, the guy who's got his shit together does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So maybe you should get your shit together. And I like that because sometimes tarot, especially kind of, I often read kind of Rider Waite style, right? With those kinds of decks. And those are much more psychological. Not that it's all in your own head, but it's always like, let's talk about how you feel and your
Right.
baggage around this situation. And sometimes that's super useful. And sometimes you're like, just tell me what's going to happen.
Yeah. Just give me an answer. And also, I don't care about feelings. This is the Aquarius nature. I'm like,
Exactly. And Marseille is much better for that.
yeah.
And like and so now I've been reading with the Fortune's Fool's deck, right? Lenormand. It's the first time I've ever read Lenormand, and that deck is bitchy, which maybe we shouldn't be surprised.
I'm gonna let that one pass with a minimum of comment. Oh my God, that's funny. I like the idea that Gordon's very, very charming cattiness made its way into the deck. You know what I mean? That it's
Right
right
in
there.
there.
Also,
Yeah.
but it is a spirit deck devoted to Madame Lenormand. You know what I mean? Like, so I wonder how much of that really is just her being, a 200-year-old spirit at this point, being like, you're still asking me the same questions about like, what's wrong? Should I dump my boyfriend? Like, it's like
Right.
the
Right.
spirit
I
had moved
don't
on.
read those. I mean, I have every so often someone will be like, back in the day when I was doing them, they're like, can you do me a reading on if he's going to leave his wife? And I'm like, no, because you could just ask him and save money.
And the answer is no. Um, I want to circle back though. I liked what you were saying about. I'm curious, anybody, what you're doing in terms of the work aspect. Like if like the reading is a lot of work, you now have a way to deal with this kind of stuff, but it is something you've got to like plan out and do and that kind of stuff. I've been dealing with my job stuff by digging deep into the sort of Mitch Horowitz, new thought stuff, and very much like if this is the end of work, let it be because I'm a country squire and I don't have to do jobs anymore because I'm so wealthy that it just doesn't, I don't need to, like that's the the angles I'm trying to play. And so doing a lot of like today I got a little tight about, nervous about where the work was going. What is the effect of this? So I spend a good, 15 minutes meditating about how great it's going to be this summer, when like Zamboni comes down this way, and I'm just gonna have so much cash lying around, I'm not even gonna know what to do with it. Just bags of money in the house, be like, take one, I don't know, like that
Love
kind of
it.
Scrooge McDuck fantasy about what's going on, which is helpful, and I think does bring in a lot of the good stuff there. But so yeah, so what kind of approaches are you kind of pulling in for like maybe I'm gonna go to Puerto Rico? Maybe like how do you deal with the fact that it could be a lot of work?
Mostly I have been trying to do work.
Right.
So, so like, I am someone who falls into disrepair as far as my emotions is concerned, and then nothing gets done after that. And
Right.
so then I lose steam, and then once I've lost steam, then like how often and all this, right? So now I've got a deadline, and I'm like, okay, let me pick some shit back up and get back to it and see about who do I need to pay to get the design done for the thing so that it can, or like any of that sort of stuff. And so I'm not really I'm not even really approaching it magically too much. Like I've got my baseline, like my like regular enchantments that I like
Yeah.
always do. I've got like a few prayers that I do here and there. I've got a few sigils that I really love, and I just hit those sigils all the time. They're like super regular sigils. Can I tell you one of the best ones?
Yes.
Yo,
Yes, please.
the best one that I love so much is people compliment me behind my back.
That's a good
Oh,
one.
that's nice.
That's a really good one.
That's
I don't
very,
I don't always hear those compliments, but if everyone knows that I can't hear it, then the shit is genuine. And every
Yeah.
once in a while, I'll hear about somebody like, oh, they somebody said that you were whatever, whatever, you know. And so, anyway,
It's
so I've got a
also
few of these enchantments that are just like continuously running. Like
right.
that one's evergreen. You know, we're not gonna get tired of that one. And so I keep stuff like that going. I like keep a regular ancestor thing going, and just and do a lot of like, hey, make it happen.
Yep.
Hey, you, whoever's listening, go make it happen.
Yeah.
Thanks. Walking through the woods, being like, hey, you know what it is. Go
Let's
do
do this
that.
thing. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Brian, what's your favorite sigil statement? Because I really like people compliment me behind my back is really nice. But
It,
what's your favorite?
I like that one because that one's like good anti-envy tech
Hmm.
too, because like
Hmm.
sometimes that's one of the dangers in success, right? Is that as you get more success, you acquire some negative energy attracted to you. And I like that one as like a not just a cool baseline, but as a defensive measure against attracting envy. Um, I don't. So my, if we went by the numbers, my favorite is my RoboFish, which is I drink coffee, which is like always my RoboFish because I am always drinking coffee. So stuff is just always rolling through. Um,
I enchanted my way into a caffeine addiction this way.
yeah, it's great.
I was not drinking coffee before. I was like offering coffee to the ancestors and making it my robofish.
By addiction, you mean positive relationship with a very warm and giving spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
def.
right. Yeah, yeah.
What's
Um,
that? I like my coffee like I like my women. Uh, Strong and given proper credit for their contribution to the workplace.
right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. Oh. Probably my favorite is and this occurs because right now I'm doing a lot more sort of mantra and manifesting work than I am sigils at this point in time. But it shows up in the sigils as well, which is some version of I am the goddamn Pater Familias, which is a quote from "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" But what it is actually a statement of like, I wish to have all my resources set in a way that I am handling like a Roman head of household. I am handling all the shit. Everything is
Mm,
organized. I have the capacity to handle everything. I
mm,
have people coming in asking me for help, not the other way around. I have
mm,
clients. I have, I'm the patron, right? And so it's like that often gets applied to a wide range of circumstances. So if it's like, I'm writing it's really a shorthand for I have the capacity to be generous, right? And so if I'm talking about getting a book done, I want that to open doors that allows me to be generous and let other people get access to stuff. If I'm talking about wealth, I want to be able to be generous with that. If it's um, magical success, even or like healing work, right? I want the capacity to come into me so that I can then give it out again.
No,
Um,
that's a great and just even I have the capacity to be generous. It's really
mhm.
nice.
See,
mm,
but
mm,
there's a mouth feel to the powder familius thing to me
mm,
that works, and so I think it would because my problem with I did use capacity in the fat past, but like capacity doesn't mean I'm doing it.
No, yeah,
I
mm,
could,
mm,
whereas this actually entangles some obligation,
mm.
and
Responsibility is maybe a better word here.
yeah, 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 yeah. And so the network, but this is an Ivy trick. This is actually one I've taken from Ivy for the entire time, which is when I do my morning prayers, when I talk do the particularly planetary prayers, everything is about my household.
yes.
which is a trick that I got. So I don't say turn your foul fortune from me. I say turn it away from my household, because and I don't think that's necessarily right for everybody, but I am a household creature. I think very much as being part of a community household. But this is
Yeah,
kind
and
of a
also
version of
like
that.
let the water heater keep running.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. It also solves a bunch of ethical quandaries about like, well, if I need chant for my partner, if he or she isn't magical, or I know chant for my kids without their permission, is that weird? Just enchant for the household because everyone's a part of it. The house itself, the place that you live, house or
Is also
apartment,
part.
hashtag van life is all part of the household. Your pets, your plants, all part of the household. The spirits in your house, all
Yep.
part of the household. So just lean everything to the household. And it works super well. In fact, so now that I have a grown-up kid who's
Grown up
away
kid.
across the entire country at college, he's still sort of like an honorary household member.
Yeah.
And as long as he's cool with that, right? Like if he was all like, I don't want to be a part of this family anymore, then I wouldn't do that. But like as long as he's cool with that as an adult, then he also gets leverage for the household is prosperous, the household is safe, the household is healthy.
Yeah. I mean, my brain is very Game of Thrones at its level. Like everybody's wearing a badge in their house, whatever. You know what I mean? Like you don't stop being house whatever just because you moved across the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an outpost of the,
Right.
the peaceable kingdom or whatever, right? So yeah, absolutely. By the way, my favorite sigil statement is all my sigils always work.
Yeah, the meta magics.
The meta magic. You just throw that in there and give everything else a boost.
The meta magics.
I
What's
sometimes enchant for axioms also, axioms that I like. And so anytime that somebody says that axiom, then it functions also as a robofish.
Yes. Oh, so I like that a lot. Because when I first started doing sigils, it was like burn them, forget them. You know what I mean? That sort of chaos magic version. And then Gordon was like, no, have them around the house, like have them be like activated and stuff. The axiom's an even better one because now people are like the whole culture is activating your shit.
Right, exactly. I try to like let them be around, let them be
Right.
in, you know what I mean? Like hiding in plain sight is cute whenever we can
Yep.
do that, this kind of thing.
Yeah, man. Actually, my friend Tilly in Tasmania had gone to a grant writing class. And in the grant writing class, they were like, write as if the project is 100% going to be done, whether they give you the grant or not. Right. That you're just asking them to make it easier for you to do the thing that you're gonna do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's done.
That's really good.
But you can help me make it easier, basically. And she called me up and she was like, this feels like magic. And I was like, it is magic. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah,
Calling
well,
that
once
into
you
being.
realize what magic is, then there's no escaping, you
No, you
know?
can't
Like
get out.
as soon as you get in the economy, you're like, "Oh, it's all magic." It's the always has been meme.
Dude, yes. The
The,
the
the axioms thing is so cool though, because the idea that other people are expressing those as well. So because I have a set of like personal maxims that I follow, and now I'm thinking about how I would make sigils out of those. Like give fewer fucks is one of them. And don't get offended, get pissed off is another. They're all like they're my personal ones. They're not maybe for other people to use, but or make your own sense. If you want things to make sense, you better make some of your own because there's not a lot out there to just grab onto. So if you want to make sense, make it yourself. And those would be interesting to sigilize now. I've been thinking sigils a lot lately. So
Yeah, they're
I was
so
just thinking,
useful and easy to do. They're like sigils are for everybody, you know?
yeah.
yeah.
It's back to I love thinking about us as paper magicians, right? Like just like that's what we do.
Yeah.
We just we're tree and then connected to trees and connected to this and inks and all this stuff. You can make it go back, but listen, Aiden Wachter can be a gold magician, totally fine. He can make cool shit, but paper's not always worse. You know what I mean? Like sometimes that gold hangs around for a long time. I was talking to Marissa about like how crowns can be a curse, right? Like you don't want to throw away. You're like, oh, this talisman is no longer suiting me, but it is very pretty and it's very valuable. Do I really want to throw it away? Whereas like my paper talisman, I'm like, no, we're done.
Right.
That did not work.
So I have this little booklet. It's like 7 whole pages long on how I do sigils, right? It's like my site and it's free. And I wrote it because a lot of people, I think, overcomplicate the whole sigil process. So they're like, I'm suffering for 3 weeks to come up with the perfect statement, and then I'm going to spend an hour doing this ritual to launch this. And I'm like, really? I do like a shoal a week every week. It needs to take me like 15, 20 minutes because that's what I got time for. So I wrote it, but I wrote up kind of a little booklet about it. And one of the things that I really focused on was like, they're so cheap. Like if you had nothing, you could go to the lotto counter of your local 7-Eleven and grab one of those little pencils and some napkins and make sigils. You can make them with a stick in the dirt. And you can make them for anything, right? Like how many ancient grimoire spells are there for like a free bicycle? Not many, but you can make a sigil for anything you need, right?
Now I'm really curious which of the like La Megaton spirits I would go to get a free bike. Like, and it's not
There's
Bune.
Grisha Demons, which is
Yeah.
specifically about transportation. There's probably one,
There's gotta
but
be one that would be into free bikes.
seems a little heavy-handed for a bicycle, though, right?
Yeah,
a
no,
lot
Yeah,
of
no, man, these
effort.
bikes are getting hella expensive out here.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you priced bikes.
I feel like Magic might be the only way to get a real bike these days.
It's true, dude. It's true. Even the little folder I picked up, which I really like as a cool apartment bike, was like $400, man. Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, $400 ain't even shit.
no, it's not. I took a long time to
There's
find
people
one.
out here spending $5,000-$6,000.
The really cool like old English style folders, which I'm a little hefty for, to be honest. I'm like those English boys, they grow up playing soccer. It's a little different build. But those are like 2,500, and
Yeah, right.
they're just in town commuters, gear. They don't really think about gears, it's not a
Right.
thing.
England's
But
flat.
one thing that I had been thinking with recently, that I really want to ask you about, Ivy, is because I'm trying to get my head around the concept of value, like what it means to value a thing, and what it means to like desire a thing. These seem to be related concepts. I'm not sure if they're the same thing or if they're different things. So I have recently been reading trying to get I read an economics textbook recently, just trying to like get an idea of like what an economy even am. Realized that I had no idea, and now that I'm knee deep, I'm like, oh, okay, I've learned some things by doing that. But so the way that I learned to conceive of value in that text was value is the thing is measured against opportunity cost. So the thing that you get is better than the thing that you don't get, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to allocate scarce resources that have alternative uses. So you have A thing that you could do, or you've got B thing that you could do, and a whole other field of opportunities, but let's say A and B right now. So I value thing A, and so I'm going to go for thing A, but if I do thing A, then I can't do thing B, and I got to be good with that. That's part of the way that I show that I value A over B. How do you feel about this definition? Do you think it encompasses the thing? Am I missing something?
So if you're looking at, what do economies value, or what do people in an economy, how do they allocate value? Then I guess that's what that is. I just think that from a magical standpoint, economics is kind of the wrong approach, right? So yes, there's an economy and it runs and we have to know about it. So super smart to learn about it, because if you don't know what the hell it is, then how will you win at that game? But from a magical standpoint, a more interesting question is internally, what are your values? What do you care about? And then what things in the external world, including in the economy, help manifest those values. Right. And I
Mm-hmm.
think values get a bad rap because, of course, there's these people who seem to value stripping other people of their rights and they call themselves value voters and ick, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what you care about and what you not only care about for yourself, but care about kind of putting out there in the world is what you value. So if you start there with like the internal motivation of what you value, then you can look around and instead of judging things on an economic level, like bicycles cost X, or I can do A, but if I do A, I can't do B, right? Which is much more of a materialist sort of functional definition. It doesn't mean it's untrue. It's just not the full expression of it. But if you come at it with what do I value? And then what things out in the world match or help me manifest that value? And you can value anything. It's not the Miss Universe pageant. We don't all have to value world peace, although it's not a bad idea. But like personally, you might value adventure or stability, beauty, or caring or healing, or you might value, having prosperity. It's totally legit to want to value having some stuff, right? You might value sovereignty,
Mm-hmm.
or you might value power, not because you're a megalomaniac, but because you like to be in control of things. One of
Mm-hmm.
my core values is competence, which is a really boring one. So I love to share that when I talk about this with clients and stuff. Super boring to value competence, but I do. I admire people who are competent. I want to be competent. I want the world to get its shit together. I want to help it do that. And
Mm-hmm.
when I align what's outside me with what I value internally, then that's how like you're participating in kind of the magical economy of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
when you have these desires, right? The phrase I keep hearing is that they're seeds, right? The desires are seeds that you want to kind of grow. The soil that they grow in is your values,
Hmm.
right? If you try to grow something that's not in accordance with what you actually care about, well, one, why? But two, it's not going to grow very well. It's the wrong mix, right? Right? It's the wrong fertilizer for the thing you want to grow.
I
Hmm.
like that. I
Mm-hmm.
have a sort of follow on though, in that the the question of cost still comes in, right? So like, and I have a thing later on I want to get to about work. I saw some really interesting stuff about magic and work later on that I want to get back to. But so cost still applies. So like, um, I have decided for lots of different magical reasons that compassion is one of my really some deep values. It's one of my like, if you have like three make or break ones, like compassion's top three, maybe the top one from my whole life, right? That comes with a cost in that like I cannot be compassionate and act in certain ways that may give me other pleasures, but so I'm making a cost decision on my like there is a cost component to that. I may not care that much in that like compassion is very rewarding to me and fits my values. And if I'm dishonest about my internal value and I try to apply stuff, then I'm going to run into a lot of problems, right? Like that's going to be very issue. But like I can't be compassionate and when my son has a hard day, just be like, sorry, kid, I got to work. Like there's a cost to that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I have to pay in order to get that value. Um,
Yeah. That right, exactly. Or in one of your examples, Ivy, it was adventure versus stability or something like this,
hmm,
right? So like, the you if you'd value one of those things, then like one of the others might have to go by the wayside at least for a time or something like this, right?
right.
Right. I mean, you can value things that are the term is orthogonal, right? Like they don't necessarily always go together. Although there's ways I think to have a stable life that has adventures in it,
Sure.
right? As anyone who's like an eco tourist but has a lot of money will tell you, right? There are ways to have adventures and have stability. Now, we're all playing this playing the economics game because we're in an economy. So like pretending that there isn't one and that you don't want to play doesn't actually work. I mean, it works, but it's not very good for you or your household, right? It can be, I don't want to know from that it's too hard, it's too confusing, right? It's good to know how it works, but we're also playing the magical game. And with the magical game, it's not so much about what you pay for your values, so much as just how you prioritize the engagements that build them. Because how you know you have a really good value is it's not something you just want for you. Like, compassion is your core value, Brian, but you also want to build a more compassionate world, right? One, because it makes it easier for you to be compassionate in a world that's not.
It's something I wish to share with people.
Right. Yeah. You want to manifest it outside of yourself as well as inside of yourself. And so that's transactional, right? You're giving that out and you're getting that back. And that's an economy. It's just not so much an economy of money as values. Now, certainly you might have goals in your life, moving to Costa Rica or whatever, that you might need some money for, because we actually do still live in a real and very boring economy where those things are a thing. But you don't enchant for money to travel. You enchant for travel and let the chips fall where they may. Right? So yeah, so there's ways to sort of short circuit the more materialist side of things and, use enchantment to kind of like, it's leverage in an almost very capitalistic sense, right? Like it's magic is leverage to get what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like the mirror there, because it's like, it's big samesies. It feels all samesies to me, like if I can figure out like how economic currents work, then I think I also figure out how the magic currents work, and vice versa, right? Like studying one helps with understanding the other. And when I think about like something like economic success, then I think that it's like the Gordon defined wealth as like the mouthfeel of my preferred life, or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so so the preferred life it includes the things that you really care about, that you value, right? And doesn't include the things that you don't, right? And so one of the things that I have been thinking about as far as like sigil targets and cultivating desires in general and this kind of thing is thinking of value and desire as a process of discovery, like a thing that exists inside me already, that is self-evident in the same way that nature, the world, the universe in general is self-evident. And so there's a certain and so that's why it matters so much, the measuring against opportunity cost, because I use that as a mechanism for determining what I actually care about. Do I care about the thing that I say that I care about, or do I care about the thing that I am actually spending my time, money, energy on?
Right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of forces out there that would have us caring about all the wrong things, right? They want to make us care about, shiny objects rather than kind of meaningful experiences or things that are good for what we want and our values, right? So you're absolutely right. I also think that this idea that it's a process is really powerful, because it's a process that you participate, like of discovery, but it's a process that you participate in. So you're nurturing and growing the thing that you're also discovering, right? And then again, that seed growing is a good metaphor for it. I also must say that the idea of currency is really, Brian will remember we had this conversation on the shore of the Hudson.
Yep.
Out, like hanging out in real life and discussing how currency literally comes from the word flow, right? It's the current, and there's magical current, and then there's economic current. It's all currency of different kinds. And the limitation of currency to, actual, or now it's just ones and zeros, right? It doesn't even
Hmm.
exist almost at all. It's just this weird digital idea of currency. The limitation of that to that is not, it's not super helpful.
This is so. This leads into what I wanted to, and maybe we'll talk about the sort of working we did at the Hudson Ivy, just so we can talk about the outcomes there a little bit. So I wish I could with someone on Instagram. I'm very sorry. I don't know which it was on Instagram. I cannot recall it now. If other people remember seeing who it was who was talking about how magic takes us outside the paradigm of work in order to achieve desire, that's who I'm referencing. I'm sorry, Instagram, which you were very smart and I should have remembered your name. But the argument there was that like there's kind of understanding reality and how it functions, right? And magic being a part of how things actually function. And then the lie you're told about how you succeed, right? You succeed through hard work, right?
Hmm.
That's different. And we just talked earlier about how there's work components we're happy to do. Like I'm happy to spend all day tussling with a poem, right? But this idea of like you will succeed in the economy by working a 40-hour a week job and doing just playing by the rules and doing all this kind of stuff, less necessarily so, right? A lot of people who succeed have other what we would call magical connections, right? They have some kind of pass in from an Ivy League school, or they have a connection that does this other stuff for them that sets them up in different ways. And that magic is a way to sort of give the lie to that understanding that can be an imprisoning way to get your desire, right? That I have to follow this path to get these desires. This is something that San Simon, who I'm a devotee of, is very awesome about. He's like one of his revolutionary acts in Guatemala is, the colonials, the settlers tell you can't have a car unless you work for 2 months to get a car. But you go to San Simon, offer him some cigars, and you're like, here's a car. I just give it to you. Right. Screw their rules. Here's your car. Right. And I think that gets into a case of like these relationalities. Like once we have values, once we see that what we're willing to spend focus and cost for, what does it mean to actually get those things? Like, what is the method through which we achieve them? Is it a straightforward, linear, work 40 years, get your gold watch approach? Or is it something else, understanding how to navigate the currents and the flows that are actually happening around you, right? And so we are talking about the limitation of time, right? Like there's only, if I want this, I only live this long. I need to do certain things and I can't do other things. But then the question is, what do I do then in order to get the things I want? And I think it's probably not work so much, like, which is different than dedication to craft, right? Like I'm describing a sort of labor component as opposed to a understanding component or desire component.
So by work here, you mean like shit that you don't want to do.
Yes.
Okay.
And
That's
like,
actually really important semantics, right? Because in another way, work is just a force over distance or a change in energy.
sure.
I love work as a
Mhm.
change in energy, right? Which is a very
Mhm.
magical view of work. And
Well, and
we're
to
all
your point about
working all the time.
competence
Mhm.
is worth achieving. Like mastery, the last time we were talking about the importance of work or dedication to mastery, right? Which takes a
Mhm.
lot of effort, and is a beautiful thing. But it's not buying into a imprisoning labor. That's what I really mean by work in this context, is some kind of
Mhm.
imprisoning labor.
Okay,
Well,
so
so
this
there's the
makes
reason that that guy in the Bible that all the bad shit happened to was named Job.
okay. Please say more.
Well, he was. Job had all this bad shit happen to him for no fault of his own because of authority figures arguing. That's a job, right? There's
Right.
people have job, and job, you trade your bits of your life away for bits of money that then you can use to get shelter and food and stuff. And nobody should feel bad about needing to have one of those because food,
Right.
right? That said, work is all of the things we do with our lives to move through time, right, with intent or change our energy. And then that's a much more magical view of work. So yes, I think the names we use are really valuable and important there
Right.
because and the truth is that um if you find yourself needing some actual money to, I don't know, pay rent or whatever, right? I presume none of us are actually freegans just living wild on the streets, eating out
So
of.
close. So close.
Yeah. But if you need some money, then there's you can have like a job, but you can
Yeah.
also be like, what do I care about? What do I value and want to manifest? And is there a way I can do that and that has wider value that other people will, will trade with me for, will transact with me, and then there's currency. So, you know, I mean, there's a sort of like if only we could all live wild and free in the fields or whatever. But you know, folks who did that worked awfully hard. They worked way the hell harder than any of us probably do with our lack of back breaking turnip harvesting in the field.
No. I'm going to push back slightly there, but then I think Zamboni had a point I wanted to pull back on a second ago. But your medieval peasants worked about half the amount of time we work. They worked about 180 days a year, with multiple festivals, and like the real like killer is disease, right? Like it's not the labor so that's killing them so much as the disease. And there are times and places where it really does suck to be a medieval peasant. You know, like the Hundred Years' War is a real bad time in history to exist as a human. 30 Years' War also not great. Knights come by and burn your shit down all the time. Like this stuff's bad. But the kind of labor that's imagined there, and there's some really cool documentaries about you can see on the stuff about they did reconstruction stuff of like early modern farming communities and stuff. It's not that this work doesn't have a physical cost, but that the way we understand contemporary farm labor is actually a product of the Enlightenment period, right? Where we're actually having a mechanized serfhood that's different. Whereas in the Middle Ages, like you got off 3 or 4 days for every saint's day. Like you didn't work a 9 to 5. And in the wintertime, it was much shorter hours. And like again, I'm not saying that we haven't made progress and that some of those people wouldn't be like, this is much better now. But if you look at like the day of a 16th century householder in small farmer in like England, like they get up, they do the work. By the end of the day, they're eating food from their farm and they're drinking and usually making music with their friends. And they go to sleep and they do it again until there's a festival, in which case they then party for 3 or 4 days and get super drunk, and then they all have hangovers for the next 2 days, and then the process repeats. But like so the reason I mentioned that is that we're accepting a framing that can't be the good, like the permaculture stuff can be the good life. I know you got chickens, Ivy. Like those chickens
I
are
do.
like,
They're
you
not a
know,
lot of work. No, they're very chill. I love my ladies, and they don't require a lot of effort. No, you may be right, and I've certainly heard that hunter-gatherer societies work even less in terms of
right.
the number of hours. The thing is, but we all do work, right? We
Yeah,
all do things that get us to change our energy and move us through our lives, whether we have job or something else,
yeah.
right? I want to know what Zamboni thinks. He's got a thoughtful expression.
Yeah. There were a few things that like got sparked during conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was thinking while you were talking about medieval peasantry being rough, it's the diseases, right? That's like
Yeah.
the thing that made it really rough. And so it's interesting to me that usually when we think about disease and not dealing with that kind of disease now, then what we think of is modern medicine, when in
Sure.
fact, what really makes the difference is sanitation and
Hygiene.
like
100%.
Yeah.
hygiene, exactly. Being able to get your shit away from you is excellent. And so, and to clean yourself up properly, right? And so
Right.
then what we run into here is so stagnation is a killer, and stepping into
Ooh.
the flow is the move,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
this is another way to like think with flow, and how, and the importance of flow, and how flow is life-giving, whereas
Hmm.
being away from flow is stagnant and can kill you.
Yes, this is really. Oh, okay. Yeah, I really like the framing because it's getting to Ivy's energy change level too, right? Like same kind of thing. But the flow is a really good example here. Like, so we talk about, I'm currently working a day job, which I hope will allow me to get to a stage where I can move to the next thing, right? And which is the plan. But that is if for some reason this particular iteration of that becomes a cesspool, right? It
Mm,
traps me in having to do more work to make more money. I never see the kid. I don't get any writing done. Then it's like, oh no, I'm no longer in flow. I have stagnated. This is now poisoning me. I need to move. I need to find a new
mhm,
job. I need to do a new thing because what I value is now being destroyed, right?
mhm, mhm. And this is one of the reasons why I like the sigil axiom, or the axiom sigil, right? Is because that is like one of the things that you want if you want your magic to be effective is you want to make sure that there's something powering the thing, right? And so with the axioms, then other people are involved, and what you do is you step into the current, you step into what's already flowing, this is already happening, this is already in the zeitgeist, and then you put yourself in that, and then you go with that flow, and you don't have to swim. All you got to, well, I mean, you got to like stay up above the water or whatever, right? You're always going to have to do that. That's what you were talking about, Ivy, about like everyone engages in tedium, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for you to, so you're still going to have to swim or whatever, but you don't have to worry about how am I going to get that way, because the current is taking you already. That's what, like, you want to be in that flow at all times.
No, that's I think that's such a smart way to put it because yeah, you gotta swim. Well, because that's just life,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not even just tedium. Sometimes swimming can
Just
be
keep
fun. It's just life.
swimming.
Life is
Just
keeping your head
keep
above
swimming.
water and yeah, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. But when you are when you're fighting against the current of things, right? That you're right. Then everything is much harder. And the other thing is, I like the whirlpool idea as well because people get stuck
Mm,
in there.
Mm-hmm.
I have something I wrote up a while back about risk mitigation, and it was about this like risk Cthulhu that people get into, like this multi-tentacled monster of risk where, and my example of this is okay, so let's say your job is really shit and it's destroying your health.
Mm.
But you can't look for another job because you're exhausted and feel like crap all the time. And you can't quit your job because hello, health insurance. And it's like
mhm,
this horrible, loop whirlpool of suck that you get stuck in, right? And there are ways to kind of bust out of that. And magic is definitely one of the tools you can use and should use to get out of that situation. But it's that's what kind of the Western world is sort of set up to make a lot of. And so a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people get stuck in it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So one of the things, you know, when we're thinking about like we exist in a post-enlightenment way of framing things, then as, you know, and the Enlightenment sort of coinciding with the American experiment, and the American experiment being like really strongly gung ho, like work hard and you can achieve whatever,
Right.
right? And so there's a kind of like, yes, work is good, and not work, everything that's not work is terrible, trash, and destroy it forever. So so we've got this frame that continues at all times, right? And so if we so that's the frame, and you said, Ivy, that framing that we live in creates whirlpools. And so I think that this is a really interesting way to think about. So it's not, if we start to think outside of that, then it's
Right.
not necessarily a whirlpool of my own making, which is what I typically would think if it's like I'm not working hard enough, right? I'm not
Right.
grinding enough, right? So there's that element. So the whirlpool is already here, or it's like it is set, things are set up to be a whirlpool. But then also it's important. So if we're thinking about flow, like water flows in the world, and also whirlpools are naturally occurring things.
Yeah.
So sometimes the flow turns into a whirlpool by just the nature of the shape of things
Right.
that just exist in the world, right? And so this, I think, is maybe a more useful way of thinking, right? So there's like, because you have to maintain the two frames all at the same time, right? On the one
Yeah.
hand, I am the supreme creator of my life and I do everything and I am the only one that matters. And if it's my responsibility, then I can do something about that. And that's where I want things, right? It needs to be an internal locus of control. At the same time, I live in a world where everyone is making decisions. I'm not the only one making decisions, and I have to be maybe compassionate about that, about like that sort of situation. And so that to me becomes its own whirlpool where like I get stuck, like because I don't know where the real thing is, you know, because like I can it's also all I can do is me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's, if you were, let's say that you're kayaking, all of this boat metaphors, man. So you're kayaking along and you get stuck in a whirlpool and it's going to suck you down and drown you. Whether you made the whirlpool or not, you were going to swim like hell. It's not like, well, I didn't make this whirlpool, so I guess I just drown, right? Like you have
Sure.
internal locus of control, right? You have to push and do your best to get out of those situations. And the truth is those whirlpools can be anything, right? They could be job. They can also be relationship,
Mm-hmm.
location, which for one person can be great and then the neighbor can be terrible. It can be, right? It could be your own, and then you can make your own whirlpools, as we know, with the bad tapes that play in your head and say terrible things. Those are whirlpools you create for yourself. So there are all different kinds of ones. And what else can you do but try to stop making them? Don't make them for other people. And try to avoid the ones that are already out there and swim like hell. Because what else can you do? You drown. In and a totally other framing of this, like at a higher level, is that as far as I can tell, and I don't know, but my best guess is that this world that we're all incarnate in is just a laboratory for experiences. That the part of us that is more wide seeing and knowing, the higher levels of us want to come to check out different experiences, not just good ones, right? So we're here to like fuck around and find out.
Indeed.
That's what this is for. And
Yeah.
like to do experiments and to, like manifest love. And yeah, that's what this is for. And sometimes it sucks and you get eclipses. And and sometimes it's awesome.
Part of the game.
Yeah, but it's just what we're here to kind of do. And then when we're done, maybe we do it again because there's more experiences, different ones we want to have, and maybe we do something else.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you got me ready to rip this bong. So like, rock with me for a second, okay? So I'm thinking about so I'm thinking about the nature of everything now, and
It'll be a long conversation.
yeah. Well, so that's kind of what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all a long conversation, and so I think sometimes about the omniscience of the creator. And then I think also, so like it's a laboratory for experiments. So no one knows exactly like until the end of the thing. And there can possibly be no end of the thing. So
Yeah.
am I, what?
Yeah. That we don't, there's no, we expand. It's actually, I like the idea again, it's back to desire again, right? So like we're expanding the knowing of the thing as we continue into as it goes. Like we both make and create and experience the thing all in the same moments of these desire experiments or these desire plays. Like the universe learns something new every time you learn something new. It doesn't know until you know.
And the limits to our knowledge and our consciousness are part of the experience, right? Because if we knew everything, then there wouldn't be anything to experience because we would just know everything. I mean, sometimes I
That's
That
wonder
would
if
be
the creator is bored.
terrifying.
so this is the game I like to play with this. And it started back when I was doing more heretical Christian stuff. The sort of like process theology, Whitehead kind of look, where like the universe is growing and changing and learning as we go. There is an omni-experience. That's not the right word, but I'm just gonna say it for a second. But not an omniscience in a sense, like there is no final outcome already known to which we are going. It knows everything as we know everything because we are building the bridge as we go, right? Like the universe is being built underneath us.
Sure. So, but then I'm also an astrologer, right? So what you can do using fancy math is you can extrapolate forward based on the position of things now. So I've been rocking with this theory for a while that so space and time are the same thing. And this is okay, you're nodding. I don't have to explain that to you. So
Don't
space
explain.
and
I'm
time.
good. Yeah.
I was like, I'm good. I'm down.
Not the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Sometimes I mostly talk to like beginner level people when I'm doing astrology stuff, and so I always go and explain my foundations. But so space and time are the same thing, and so the way that astrology works is you can take a look at the shape of the sky. Literally, the sky is in a certain shape, and that means that all of everything is in a certain shape. And so because things are in that shape, then I think about it like a pitcher. Like a pitcher is shaped in a certain way so that when you tip it, it flows in that way, right? You can think about like the way that the water turns into itself and this kind of like, that's what the pitcher does, right? Because the pitcher is shaped that way. If the pitcher was shaped a different way, then it would go, things would flow in a different way. And that's why everybody's natal chart turns them into a unique snowflake and all this, right? So I've been thinking about that and like, so what were we talking about a second ago?
We're talking about my belief the universe is built like a bridge as we're building it as we
Omni-experience.
go. Omni-experience rather than omniscience, which I swear to God, there's a better term for what I just said.
Extrapolating forward, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So if you extrapolate forward from the shape of things now and shape of things to come, then you can do that theoretically indefinitely, right?
Yes. Right.
So
Ivy looks like she's about to hit that bong real hard.
Well,
no, I think she's about to smash my bong.
No. So here's the thing. You know how you were saying earlier that the two things are true, one of which is that you have internal locus of control, and one of which is that you don't control everything. And both those are true at the same time. This is a similar thing because on the one hand, all Wednesdays are the same Wednesday and whatnot, right? Like the nature of the entire everything is cyclical, and so things keep turning, and that's how you can do predictive stuff, for example, with astrology. But it's also just, how patterns repeat. That said, that's true, while at the exact same time, one cannot step in the same river twice, right? Man cannot step in the same river twice because he's not the same man. It's not the same river and he's not the same man, right?
This is actually one of the things I love about geomancy. So this came up this week during a client reading where because of the way geomancy combines in patterns, right? So we have the 256 possible combinations of energies from the 16 figures. Because of that, certain outcomes can only be generated by some subset of patterns, right? So like if the answer to your question is yes, the energy of these two combine into a good thing for you, can combine into Fortuna Major. There's only so many ways that can be generated from the root figures. in order for that to happen, which means there are patterns you can anticipate that can come up. So like there's like the idea of like I am going to I'm going to achieve a certain amount of economic freedom, right? I'm just giving bullshit examples right now. May require you to have a new lover, right? One of the patterns of doing this may be the new lover comes into existence because this is the way the patterns get built. When this happens, which is very similar to your picture shape, right? Like in order for this to happen, you got to build your picture this way. So actually, I can talk about this one because it's been a while. So I had a buddy who really wanted a job as a professor, in one particular one, and he asked me to make a geomantic chart as a talisman for getting the job, which is an Arabic technique called a taskin. And I hadn't done this before, but the way I did the math, I was like, you're gonna have to accept some possible negatives in certain areas of your chart in order to get the job you want. Like, so we just got to configure it to something you can live with, right? In his case, in order to get the job he wanted, the best one we found involved him getting sick for about 6 months. Turns out, though, if you think about it, when you get a high dollar academic job and you're stressed all the time and you're working constantly, you're setting up your lab and you're doing all this stuff, what is one of the natural things that happens to you? Well, you tend to get sick, right? And he took the deal. He took the opportunity cost, right? Like, I will accept this cost. He put the task in under his desk at the job that he wanted, basically, like how it would work out at home. And then he forgot about it. And when he moved to get his new job and he was getting else, it like fell out of his desk. And he saw it and he was like, oh, right, I got the job. And these are the patterns, which allowed him to prepare a little bit for the sickness. So he ended up like finding like it wasn't as bad as it could have been because he's like, I do need to rest more. I do need to do this kind of stuff. So it all worked out pretty well. But the shape of the picture for that particular kind of magic had a set of possible outcomes, right? But those, as you say, those extend indefinitely, right? The stars will keep telling us things as long as there are stars, right? As long as we're moving, the shapes will tell us what's coming because they're a little bit ahead of us, or they're representative of the bigger picture we can't see in ourselves all the time.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about this is, okay, so you can apparently make a geomancy reading for a particular outcome that you want with certain limitations, right?
Right.
Remind me to hit you up for one later because that sounds awesome. You could do the same with tarot, and I've worked magic that way. I'll take a deck that I like. I have decks that I specifically use for certain kinds of magic, and decks that I like, my client deck, and I will put a spread out for whatever I want. Right? I'm like, this is the future I want, and I lay it out, and then I do magic on it. And the idea is I'm manifesting the thing that's represented by the spread. So, but you can, while there are limits, right, that come from your chart or the shape of the picture or the trade-offs you have to make, the shape of things you create also has an impact on those things. So, okay, so I'm doing this thing on setting goals. I'm actually doing a course right now, and I'm sorry to, talk about all my stuff, but like it's already started and it's full. But and the idea is that my premise is that the kind of goal you make and how you make it significantly impacts, one, whether you have any hope of achieving it, right? Because a lot of people set goals that are like these undoable, mushy blobs of goo, and there's no way to actually like get to that result. So why bother? But also, the way you make a goal can absolutely impact your ability to enchant it, to make it magical, more enchantable. And the result can be more enchanted, right? So it's kind of a loop. Because what you're doing when you create that is you're creating like a picture to hold this destination you want to reach for yourself. And you have the ability to shape it. You're the potter and the clay, if we want to get really Christian about it, right? So you're doing it, but you're doing it with your own chart, because we all have one. You're doing it with the circumstances of your own life and your own patterns that came to you from your childhood. All of that still exists and is impacts the shape, but you could still make shapes, right? You could still build kind of the things you want to build in a shape that is all of the good stuff, right? In line with your values and meaningful for your household and all of that, all of those things.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. This, when you were talking about setting goals there, it made me think about like goal setting as an exercise in um like fantasy, like thinking about the thing that would be like most delicious and wonderful ever in life, and then also being aware of where I'm starting from. I always have to be I have to start here.
Mhm.
I'm always here. It's the old wherever I go, there I am, right? It's that. So like I always have sometimes I like will be going about like cleaning up my apartment or something like that, and I'll be like, okay, so step one is do this thing, and so I'll go and like take the trash out for a second, and then be like, all right, so step one is, and so like I'm
Right.
always on step one, right? Like I never get past that. So so how do you go about navigating that, Ivy? Like thinking with, the obvious example is like I'm not getting into the NBA at this point, right? Or but like there are other things that, when we're thinking about just like kind of basic things that the sex, money, power that you typically enchant for, like
Yeah.
even some of those things will feel like extremely distant and fantastic relative to where I am right now. And so how do
Yeah.
you navigate that?
Well, so the how you navigate that is that between um some particular future that you're interested in manifesting, because that's what really this is about. It's not so much about like we always use this language of achievement, right? But it's not just about like I shall achieve all the things, because that comes out of this like unpleasant, let's all hustle all day long kind of sort of environment. But when you think about kind of the future you want to try to manifest, there's a gap. There's a gap between that future and who and where you are now. And how you sort of come to this is that you need to analyze the gap and see if the gap makes sense, right? So if you, for example, let's pick a goal that's really concrete. You want to go to a 4-year university and get a 4-year university degree in whatever, right? There's a 4-year gap between you and that result. It might be 3.5, but it's probably not 5 months,
Right.
right? There's just a natural amount of time. There's also just gaps you can't cross. Yes, my modeling career, your NBA career, Brian, you're never going to be an astronaut, right? I mean, that there are gaps that you can't cross because of where you are in your life or what you do, but you're making your future based on who you are. So you can make a better future that, as you said, I love this, by the way, this is delicious, right? So that's, you can do something. So why not? The fact that you can't join the NBA is no reason not to do whatever it is. It still sounds cool that you could do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's interesting there too to again pull apart like what is that desire? You know, what in the 4-year institution, what is my actual desire there? Right? What
Right.
what do I really want? And does that really require a 4-year institution?
All right. So with
Indeed.
that shit, I've been working for a really long time trying to get to the bottom of desire, trying to figure out what is really at the bottom of it. And I think I found it. So test me out here. I think at least, but I think everybody wants to feel good
This is a
and
really
nothing more.
sticky one. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So like I don't give a shit about like if it's morally good or bad. I don't care about and this is why we can sort of get sucked into the whirlpool of my own making, where I'm making lots of bad decisions, where there's like the kind of immediate rush that is followed by whirlpool stuff, rather than getting my shit together, because I didn't realize that there was actually a better feeling on the other side of that, right? And so, but if I did get myself out of that whirlpool, then it's because I wanted that feeling. I want to feel good. I want to feel better than I do right now. What do you think?
Zamboni hedonist. Yeah, I think that might be one of your values. And I don't think,
okay.
right. Well, like, I mean,
that's on you, bro. That ain't, that's not all of us, though.
Well,
you revealed it is me under the mask.
Right.
It's totally a legitimate thing. I don't think there's probably a ton of people who are like, you know what I want? I want to feel shitty every day. No, it's probably not a lot of people who want that, but there's a sort of a mindset that can be, I want this thing. And between me and this thing is a whole lot of not feeling good. There's a whole lot of hard work or sacrifice or getting sick for 6 months to get because of the professorship or whatever it is. But that's okay, because there's that result at the other end, right? Which hopefully comes out of your values. Now, you know, there's a shocking number of people, like kids who come out of like law school and they're lawyers and they're suddenly like, what the hell? Why did I do this? Right? I mean, job dissatisfaction is pretty high for that particular career field. Some people it's perfect for. But the point is that you have your values you want to identify. Sometimes the path that feels the best isn't that thing. It doesn't get you to that destination. If that's the destination you're after, Zamboni, then absolutely. You should live life in line with your values.
So I think, though, that this is what I said about, like, if I get myself out of it, it's because I wanted the better feeling on the other side of that. You know, like I wanted, for example, to be a dope ass astrologer, and so I went through 10,000 readings. I've done 10,000 charts, and I didn't feel like doing most of those, you know, but I did them. And now that I have that, I have the feeling of facility when it comes to reading a chart that I wanted to begin with, right? And that feeling feels really good to me. And so it's not that it's all hedonism. Like, there's a fair amount of hedonism. Let's be real. We got the moon in Scorpio today. I'm here for a fair bit of debauchery, right? Bring it on. If some altos want to get in my DMs, you are welcome, right? I don't think it's all hedonism, in that, like, I'm frequently willing to put in a fair bit of work, right? And I think that is, but ultimately it's all about, I want that good feeling. Like, if I'm working, if I'm hustling, if I'm what is it, Potter, familius, right? Like, exactly. I'm the fucking guy. Then it feels good for me to be in that position, right? Like, and so it's really the feeling that I'm after, and it's the feeling that confirms. And this is part of why, like, if you go through 97 years of law school and then you finally get out, and it's been hell and whatever, and then you get out and you're like, I don't even like this shit, then it's because, well, it shows you that you didn't get the feeling that you wanted.
Right. You didn't
and that dissatisfaction that pulls you to something else is because of that, like, because it didn't feel that good.
Yeah.
I actually think you're onto something here, because what I was thinking is the feeling good itself would be the impetus for your choices and decisions, because feeling good would be the end result. But what you're saying is that when you get to an end result that is whatever it is that you actually desire, then you feel good about that. Right. Which I actually think you're onto something there. Right. So it's not just feeling good in the moment, because although that's nice, right? I mean, when we feel really good about things is when we are embodying the things that are meaningful to us.
Yeah, I talk about these sometimes as cigarette traps or cigarette desires, where like, you know, the cigarette doesn't ever really satisfy what it's supposed to do. You know what I mean? Never really gets you, it hooks you into a whirlpool thing. It doesn't get you where you want to go, but it is reflective of an actual desire that you wish to have. And the thing I've come to think about is that a lot of these things we classify as, let's say, vices, right? Or traps, often can be enlightenment methods to teach you what you want more, right? They don't have to be a negative experience. They're only a negative experience if you get caught in them, right? And you can't see your way out.
I thought you were going to
Uh,
say get caught doing them.
get
Never
caught,
mind.
but sometimes that is also
That'll cause a negative experience.
it does not always feel good. No, that does not. That's
Smoking
not.
in the boys' room.
I can't believe that I started with rawhide, but now you're doing smoking in the boys' room. That's
Motley Crue.
no, that's great. Yeah, "Kickstart My Heart" is actually one of my favorite songs that's ever been written. I gotta be
I
honest.
thought this was going to be a good audience for it.
It's a good audience. Yeah, yeah. I just like that that dude actually died and then wrote a song about it, and that was his. That's his like kickback. He also gave the guy who kickstarted his heart $1 million, which I thought was amazing. Anyway, side
Everyone
note.
should learn how to do CPR because it can pay off.
You needed paddles for this guy. That was a lot of drugs. But anyway, but the idea. So what I find interesting about the feeling good language and what we're sitting here is, I think I like it because the other thing is like I think if I had said joy instead of feeling good, there would have been a lot of people who nodded their heads immediately. But what I mean is the exact same thing you're talking about. What I find interesting is that you can, by projecting forward, anticipate what the feeling good is going to be, and that can inspire you to get through the process, right? The
Mhm.
dream and the longing itself is enough of a feeling good to get you to the thing you want to get to. And I think that's a really
Mhm.
beautiful thing about the universe, that like you can feel the shape you're in and you can see how it could be more complete, and you can want that and long for that, and you can use these tougher moments or the tedium, or if you're in the gym you're like, I don't feel like lifting today, but but you can feel, without even ever having now experienced it, you can anticipate and long for this thing that will fulfill you. It may not totally fulfill you when you reach that point, but my guess is you've learned so much about what you're actually longing for that you're either able to continue in the same direction in a more fulfilling way, or you get more of that feeling because you've gone this path, right? Um,
Mm.
but I love that. I
So,
love that we can not know, but know that this is what we want.
well, and I think that one of the powers here to do this is joking about hedonism aside, is one of the powers is to check in with yourself, because where you get into trouble is when you think something will make you happy, shiny new Mercedes, and then you get it and it doesn't. Hedonic treadmill, it doesn't really make you happy, right? It's not really what you desire. It's not really what you care about, because you substituted someone else's value for your value. The other challenge is that you can get off track, right? Like you can be like, this does feel really nice in the moment. And then if you don't really check in with yourself, you're like, but am I still on track for kind of this other thing that I know will make me feel kind of deeply good about where I'm at in the world and what I'm manifesting, right? And so I think part of whatever process has to be, again, it's a cyclical thing, right? To check back in with yourself on how it's going, and are you still, is it working for you? Not to mention that the world is hugely chaotic. So stuff will go sideways and you'll have to replan.
I have a This occurred to me while you were talking, Ivy. So I have a question for Zamboni, and I would love you to chime in too, Ivy. Do you think it is a case where the best version of that feeling good, right, is an entirely self-diagnosed, self-contained feeling? Or is it something that is connected to that transactional connection, those relational connections? Um, so the reason I'm thinking about it is just like when we think about getting off track, or we think about getting stuck in something, is it because we get lost in the sort of selfishness trap, right? Like this is only good for me. And one of the ways out is this for my flourishing and for everybody else's flourishing? Not in an altruistic way. Like I'm not trying to talk about true altruism. I'm talking about like my own flourishing and feeling is enhanced because it is part of my, like trying not to see the human as a single entity, right? Like as a separate solo entity, even if we're only just carrying our ancestors, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're a hive being. So I don't know. I just
Shout out
wanted
to
to
the
throw that.
mitochondria.
Yeah, mitochondria. Um, I just want to throw that out as like, is that something, how do you navigate that piece of discernment with your own feeling of is something feeling good?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so there, I mean, it's always the process of discovery, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it definitely could never be a singular isolated thing because a singular isolated thing is not a real thing. That's not,
Right.
it doesn't exist because mitochondria, right? Or the microbiome, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even if it was only good for me, then I got to make several trillion bacteria happy or else I'm not going to be happy.
So
So,
stressful.
right? So no matter what happens, there's a community of beings
Yeah.
who are invested in my well-being here, right? But then so but then I think about it sometimes and I think about like there are some kinds of big cats, for example, who prefer to hang out by themselves,
Hmm.
right? Or some kinds of birds are this way or whatever, doesn't matter, right? Like the I think that it is innately human, at very least, at a minimum, it is innately human for us to look out for each other.
Right.
And so and again, like we don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be altruistic. Like the best way for me to take care of me is to make sure that you got something because you're going to watch my back sometimes.
Yeah.
And we're, you know, one hand wash the other, and everyone knows that it's real important like this, so we're going to do it like this, right? So at least as far as humans are concerned, I think that that is an innate part of what it is
Hmm.
that we do. So, but then I wonder because I think that I'm sympathetic to this idea that desire is like the fabric of the universe, right?
Hmm.
It is the thing, space time and desire could be the same thing. I haven't worked that
Right.
out yet. Catch me in a few bong rips. But so if desire is the fabric of the universe, then humans and me are not the only ones who experience desire, right? And so other things, and then other things might have desires that I think are ridiculous. Other things might have desires that I would hate,
Hmm.
that they really want. And so, to your question, could it be possible that desire for solo isolation, could that be a thing theoretically that could exist? You still run into the microbiome.
Yeah.
You still run into flow, right?
Yeah.
Like the flow consists of everyone of the water and everyone else being in there. I don't think you get away from it. What do you think, Ivy?
Yeah, so everything that is in the world, and that includes all the different persons and all the different things that we are have a harder time thinking of as persons, but they're still probably persons. All of them impact their environment. Just by existing, you impact your environment. And so you're changing and creating the environment around you or in you, as you pointed out, you know, I am legion, I contain multitudes, right? As do we all. So I don't think true isolation is possible. No matter how introverted you might be and how much you like your little nest, right? We still impact the environment around us. And so when we think about what it is we want and what we want to manifest in the world, it's probably not good for something, right? Certainly I do irreparable harm to various dust mites and I'm sure my gut bacteria is like, what the hell are you eating today? Right? I mean, there's stuff that's probably harmed by me just existing. But when I look at the parts of my environment that I interact with most consciously, then what I'm building, I also want to see more of in the world. I'm not trying to, my values aren't like, death and destruction sounds awesome. No, my value is like, oh, let's make the world a more organized place, or someone might be like, let's make the world a more beautiful place, or let's make the world a more compassionate, kinder place. And that's great. So I don't think anything happens in isolation.
Yeah, the compassion one's a funny one because I have a long running theory that compassion is a value that's more likely to get you to punch someone in the face than a lot of other values
Mhm.
because you are experiencing the suffering of another. You are involved, right? Like you're not like you can be detached and be much more peaceful sometimes than if you were compassionate. The the piece I find, I obviously agree on this, like in a relational setup and thing. The thing I find interesting here is the time the time of discernment, right? Like once like so again, sort of what if magic is real? So when we think what does it mean that I feel good, right? What does it even mean to feel that way? Probably involves my microbiome feeling good, probably involves the trees in my neighborhood feeling good, right? And so locating the I that is experiencing the pleasure feeling as a um temporary head of council so we can organize shit, right? Um and sitting with and then sometimes saying like, man, the cholera I picked up really wants us to go in one direction here that I don't think the rest of us are going to go for it. Um, Jess passed on one time to me something Civ Watkins said in her class on the smalls, where it's like, um, some of them want to eat your eyes. You know what I mean? Like some of the bacteria, that is their desire is to eat your eyes, and that's not great, for me. So but anyway, to the idea of like how we learn to detach ourselves from to wander into what even am feeling, right? What even am feeling good. Like we have good systems for it. Pleasure is there. Like it's a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my big desire teachers was a beech tree, and like sitting under a beech tree and trying to find out what beech trees desire. Um, and how does that change how I desire things, and how do I desire good things for that beech tree, right? Anyway, that's something I think with of like trying to expand my pleasure into and feel what I can from the other beings that are taking pleasure in the same things I'm taking pleasure in.
Well, and I'm going to make the probably not surprising for me statement that I think that um, all persons of all kinds have purpose, right? They have their purposes and they engage in activities that fulfill their purposes, right? So hunters hunt things and animals breed and bees make honey and the trees grow and make seeds and it's all beautiful and enchanted because things are fulfilling their purpose. Um, we have a little more consciousness sometimes around our purpose. In fact, we are terribly prone to overthinking our purpose, to be honest with you. So, but in the end, manifesting a purpose seems to provide a lot of satisfaction and happiness to human beings,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When we are stripped of our purpose, it's extremely bad for us, like psychologically, physically, the works. And when we're engaged with our purpose and doing things, accomplishing things that move us to our purpose, then we tend to feel good. And that's like that's a much more tactical and less philosophical point of view on it, is that when we can get up in the morning and accomplish some stuff, do some stuff that moves us to our purpose, which is around those values and desires, then that's a very fulfilling place to be, I think.
Okay, so how do you feel about the difference between function and purpose? You think those are the same? Are they different? Because I've been thinking a
Mm-hmm.
lot with function, and I've been thinking about form and function and how those I think are the same thing. So a thing
Mm-hmm.
is as it does, and it and the other way. It does as it is. It is like Brian, you were talking about like systems, right? Like
Yeah.
a system is for the thing that it does, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about that a lot recently. And so then this goes with the idea that like the shape of the cosmos is a certain way. And so because of that shape, then it goes on to do the whatever it does, right? And this also from like so it goes up to the like hugely philosophical arena, as well as moving into like molecular biology and this kind of thing, right? Like an enzyme is a certain shape, and so because it is that shape and not the shape of other things, then it does the thing that it does and doesn't do other stuff, right? And so so I've been thinking about function and form as being central to the whole idea, right? And so then I'm thinking about what you're talking about like, so you know, for example, I think about this for myself. I am in a certain kind of body. And so because my body is shaped the way that it is shaped, and I'm in the moment that I'm the age that I am, and whatever else, right? Because of those things, I am shaped the way that I am. Then there are certain things that I want to do because they feel good to this shape, and this shape is made to do those kinds of things. And so when relating this back to what you're talking about here, do you think what I'm talking about in function and what you're talking about in purpose, where do they overlap and where do they not?
Yeah, I can definitely see what you're saying in a connection here. I'm reminded of like proteins. Like proteins
Mm-hmm.
fold in certain ways, and if you synthesize a protein, all you have to do is synthesize it and it'll just fold itself up like origami in the way that its purpose mandates. The other thing I'm reminded of is these twin studies, which I don't think they do anymore because we're not in the habit of taking identical twins and adopting them out separately, like that was ever a good idea. But there's all these old twin studies of identical twins that get adopted to different families, and they have shockingly similar life experiences, and they like marry the same sorts of people, or they do because their form, and yes, in a materialist sense, that's genetics, but it's much more like in a magical sense, the form that they take in the world has something to do with what they will do, what makes sense for them to do, what their purpose is. So I think they're very related, which is why you can't have someone else's purpose. And I'm not going to argue that there aren't maybe bad purposes. I don't know if we have to get into an ethical argument about it, but I mean, everybody has their stuff that makes sense to them and that makes them feel good, right? Or that that somehow satisfies that longing inside, the desire they have to do whatever they do. And if there's always a negotiation or intersection like between um who you are and what it is you desire, right? Because sometimes, right, if I suddenly unearthed a desire here, let's say 10 years from now, to become a physician, I would kind of be out of luck. That's an awful lot of school, right? That's a long time, and I wouldn't get to be one for very long, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
of the place I am in my life, right? Sometimes you get injured, sometimes you struggle with something. So it's always this negotiation between, the intersection of where you're at and the intersection of what you desire. But I do think that a lot of what we dream about and want, and what makes us happy comes from our shape and form, which is, yeah, genetics, so boring, but also our chart and our environment.
I had a bunch of folks hit me up for readings in the last 3 weeks, right? That
Where can I
were
get a reading,
all
Brian?
at
If I wanted to go get a
wilkinsbrian.com.
geomancy reading?
Yeah, you can get up at wilkinsbrian.com. Just feel free to go in there and get it.
Oh,
And
snap. I could go to wilkinsbrian.com to get a
it's true.
geomancy reading. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And or
Oh,
if you need to
snap.
find out your goals, you can go to circlethrice.com. You can get over there and get some goals figured out. And then, I mean, oh shoot, Zamboni, what is the name of your website again? It just eludes me. Something about your name? What is it?
ZamboniFunk.com. Hoo, hoo.
In
Tell
case
me
you want
more,
to get the
Brian.
stars to talk to you a little bit. Um, it was like 4 or 5 people who were experiencing a moment of um displacement because they were like, I'm neither in nor out. And these are all magicians. These are all of them, right? And they're like, I'm in the middle. I can't fit in this group. I don't fit in this group. And the thing is like, yeah, because magician is a shape that's in the middle. We need somebody to be able to go into fairy and come back out again and figure out what's going on over there. And that is your shape. And the more you buck that, the more upset you're going to be, right? Like, but there's a cost. There's a cost to this too, right? There is a feeling of some isolation.
You just really tripped my whole shit up just now because I was gonna say like of where you were going with the magician thing is like magicians that have a shape that is at the outskirts. But
Right.
you called that same place that I was thinking about the outside, you called it the middle
Yeah, I think
because
it's the
there's
middle.
stuff on the other side of that.
Yeah, I think it's the middle.
It's the in
Like
between.
it looks like the outskirts to the Muggles because they
Right.
can't see the fairy city. Yeah.
I was thinking about Shrek,
Also,
you know?
Shrek is perfect
Like
on this.
he
Yes.
goes out to the swamp and
Right.
he's like, "Leave me out. Leave me alone. You guys are crazy. I don't want anything to do with this. That's why I moved to the swamp so that you would not come here and
Right. This is
disrupt
the
my life."
entire purpose. But yeah, it's for I've very much experienced it as a middle place, right? And I think that that's but the point being that like we can spend time being upset about our spiritual form and being discontented with that, or you can to some extent be like, well, I can hedge, I can move this around. I can change the circumstances somewhat. Like, I can spend time getting strong, and doing that, or I can spend time not doing that. Like, but there's a sort of baseline that we're stuck in, right? And that's okay.
And I know that people sometimes want things that they actually can't have. I mean, and that sucks,
No,
right?
never wanted anything I can't have.
No, but I
Talk
mean,
about
like,
that heat.
like this is like the
Yeah.
whole, wouldn't it be cool to be in the NBA? But yeah, no, the shape, the form,
Mhm.
not the age, not happening, right? I mean, that can happen. But I think that if you are, if you sit with yourself and embody yourself a little bit and try to identify what's inside you, then you'll find things that make sense for you,
Mm.
right? Because there's a, know thyself, right? There's a knowing there where you're saying, this is who I am and where I'm at. And these are the things that I have that I want that are blossoming inside me. How do I manifest those? I can only manifest them based on the shape I've got. I can't manifest them based on how anyone else would. So
So
knowing yourself is kind of the key to sort of identifying what you can do something about, what you can build on.
I would agree with this. We've done the NBA thing a couple times. I'm not a big basketball fan, but as a kid, I absolutely loved this particular player, Muggsy Bogues. Do you guys know who Muggsy Bogues
Yeah,
was?
short dude, right? With the jumper.
Yeah, he was 5'3".
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like 5'3" is so small in the NBA. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like he's 136 pounds at his playing weight. Like it's not he's playing against monsters, right? Like it is the
It's gotta be
physical
so
equivalent
annoying when you can't stop that guy.
when you can't stop that guy. And like what he was famous for was steals, right? He was
Mhm.
incredibly good at steals. But there's a guy who really, as you were saying, Ivy, knew himself, knew his desire. He wanted to be in the NBA, felt he could do it, but he had to be honest to his frame and ability in order to do that. He was never going to be a center. You know what I mean? Like it's just not.
Mhm.
But because he was really true to himself and because he dedicated himself to what he could do, he did have the dream he wanted there. And again, these
Mhm.
sort of high level athletes, it's always Lexi Bogues is a better athlete than most people will ever be ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but I like him as an example of how we can still by being true to ourselves do some rather extraordinary things inside of our desires.
This makes me think about Charles Eisenstein's prayer that I might be put to good use.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a
It's
good
a
one.
very Thomas the Tank Engine kind of vibe, to be honest with you, right?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
love a I
Yeah.
love a world where we
I'm not
suddenly
mad at that, you
realize
know?
Yeah, but I love a world that we realize that all Charles Eisenstein has done is like repurpose, like repackage Thomas the Tank Engine, like
Plagiarism of
over
Tom, yeah.
years. You know, like we all wake up when we're like, oh shit, it was just Thomas all along. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, that's my weird thing. But yeah,
Oh,
so you
me?
were saying about be put to good use, right?
Yeah. You know, like that's if I feel like I'm doing something that, you know, like I think about dogs a lot. I think dogs will tell you a lot about happiness if you like pay attention to them, because nobody's happier than a dog. A happy dog is like happier, like is on at 11 on the human scale. We don't get that happy. But so the happiest dog is a dog who's got a job, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the happiest dog is a dog who not only has a job, but also is not the boss, is not in charge.
Right.
Because the boss who's in, or the dog who's in charge has too much shit going on. He's got people yapping at him and nipping at him all the time. He's like, doesn't have time for that shit, right? The happiest dog is a dog who has a job and is capable of executing that job. And that's what you do. You do that until you get tired and then you sleep about it. Like, and so there's
You're in the moment and you're fulfilling your purpose, right? You're doing your
exactly.
thing. Yeah. So we have a couple dogs actually, and we have a little tiny old man dog. He's very small and he's very old, and his purpose is to be yappy. His purpose is to announce things to the world at length, right? But that is his job, right? His job is to
Yeah.
yap, and he's very skilled at it. And now he's getting very old and he's going blind. And it's just there's nothing we can do about it. He's going blind. And because he's a dog, he's not super impeded by this because, you know, dogs are pretty good with the whole nose thing and the ear thing. But he still has his job. His job's a little harder, but it's still kind of his purpose in the world is to make loud noises when he's concerned about something.
Mhm.
And we'd rather he wasn't quite so yappy because small dogs, right? But the truth is that if he can do his job a little bit, then he's a better, happier creature. So we all have, so this is the job thing again, but like this is his work in the world, right? This is the energy he transfers, right? We don't withhold food if he doesn't do a full 8 hours of yapping, right? We're not his boss at the job. We're kind of like the recipients of the work, right? The
Yeah.
beneficiaries of the work. Is the work always great, the yapping? No, sometimes not, but it's his work in the world. And if we can find what our work in the world is and find a way to do that, and find a way to do that that doesn't leave us starving, like in a ditch, right? Because it is still
Yeah.
tough old capitalistic hellscape nightmare that we're kind of all rocking and rolling in, then we are way ahead of the game.
So this actually is one of the things that I had thought of before and wanted to push back on when we were talking about work, because and job, right? And it's this sense of like, if you've got a job, then it's good for you, right? And so and you what you said was like jobs will unjustly take all your shit. So that I thought I'm here for that, but I was, and even while Brian was talking about like work and like problems with work and whatever, what I'm thinking here is um like good work is the best thing.
Mhm.
You know, that's
Yeah.
what you want. You want
Yeah.
some work that doesn't, it doesn't even need to be fun or easy or pleasing or any of that stuff, right? Like it needs to be meaningful. You need to feel like it needs to be done. And so if you have the capacity to do a thing that needs to be done, then and so then this gets back into the trap of the market, right? Because the market is like, market incentives are like the main thing. People like are so wildly driven by market incentives. It's the whole like, and I have to have a certain amount of money in order to live, and because that money, that there's no upper limit to that. Like you always need more money. There's no such thing as like extra money or something like this, right? Like there's always something you could or should be doing with the money. Then everything turns into the market. And so then we and then so getting back to like value and this kind of thing, it's this idea of like, if you have a job, or if you, so it's like, it doesn't actually work this way. And so that's part of where the confusion that I have is. But then the idea is, if you have money, then it's because you worked in such a way that people valued what you did, and so your work was important to someone else and therefore meaningful. And so that is
Oh,
still there, inherent
Yeah.
in the economic marketplace, even though it has also been hijacked by the hellscape that you described before.
Well, I
no,
think,
you're absolutely right, right? Because if let's say somebody is, I'm gonna pick like something super benevolent. Like somebody is a massage therapist, right? And they make a living making other people feel physically wonderful. That they come, they do a massage, you feel loved, they feel valued, you give them money and they can pay their bills. And that is beautiful. That is working in the world. And there's a currency and a transaction there that feels healthy and good. And the fact that I could, I'm a project manager by work and by job, right? By trade and by total inclination, frankly. And I can leverage that toolkit for all kinds of things. And I love my job and I love my work and I love project management. And I know that sounds weird, but what can I tell you? It's just the way I'm wired, the shape I am. But I could project manage bombs. I could make a lot of money project
Mhm.
managing weaponry, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. The fact that someone values that and gives me money is not the same as doing good work in the world to manifest my values.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
just because somebody else values what I can do doesn't mean it fills my value. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
do value helping
Okay.
smart people get organized, right? And they don't all have to be giving massages or saving babies, right? I can do that in a lot of different ways. I can help people write books and I can help people
Mhm.
make software, and that's all awesome. But there's things that are counter to my values. And the fact that somebody else values my skill and will give me money for it doesn't make it right.
Hmm. So this is Brian's dichotomy between isolation and community before, right?
Right.
Like someone like you're tapping into your own values, and blocking out the noise of others, that can influence you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise be doing, right? Versus other people's values. And so if other people value it, then you become part of the community by participating in that. And so there's a natural tension there that what you just like surf that natural tension forever.
It's the world we live in,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the only thing weirder than having nobody want what you offer, right? Which is a bummer, is when the wrong people want it
Ooh.
and want to tempt you with it, right? I also think though that, not everybody is going to pay their rent, which is a thing that exists with, meaningful work. A lot of people just have jobs that they don't hate and that they manage to get some money from and pay their bills, and then they do the things that give them meaning in the world otherwise. And I don't think that's a wrong way to be, because everybody has to find the way to be in the world. And there's
Hmm.
plenty of people for whom meaning making is around just having their household and family be safe and secure and well fed and protected. And
Although I,
so,
oh, go
you
ahead.
know,
Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, so that's the other trade-off too, is sometimes we can just have a job, and that might be the trade-off we need to make to do the other things we want with our lives, and that's okay.
One thing this has sort of surfaced for me as we talk through it is I do think I have been happiest when my function is able to be expressed in even the day job, right? Expressed in the day job and then aligned with, if not my primary value, a value I hold dear in the community. So, for example, I actually like my
Hmm.
job quite a lot, and I like what it does in the sense that all the jobs I've enjoyed, have a heavy component of me basically doing verbal enchantment, where I am bringing out people's desires. I'm encouraging them to succeed. I'm helping them figure out how to do this, and I'm exercising my skills on behalf of their success. This has been like it's manifested different ways throughout my life, but this is a key feature that happens because I think that's part of my function, right? That's a function I do. In the case of my consulting job that helps people sell things on Facebook, to make a very sort of brief analysis of what that is. For a long time, I wasn't sure how I felt about it, because I'm not particularly fond of that medium for doing this. I think it has a lot of problems, and by helping people make money on it, I'm helping the platform and that system make money too, right? Like I'm participating in that community of economies right there. However, what I ended up realizing is that most of my day job is really helping people make their businesses work, right? Is literally helping them manifest their dreams into the world. And I'm basically okay with that. There have been some clients I have refused because whatever their business was hit a value for me that was too hard for me to work with, right? But by and large, people being able to have their dreams is I think a very good thing. Like, there's a real wide range of things I think are good in that territory. So, but I'm interested by this, where we've come to of this, like we have functions or from our forms when we can apply them to something that also reflects a value. It kind of doesn't matter where you end up. If you're doing that, you're going to have more happiness and satisfaction in what you're doing. You're going to feel better, right? And I think a lot of times where people really do get stuck is you're a massage therapist because someone told you you ought to be, and it actually, your hands hurt like hell at the end of the day every day, and you can't
And you
stand
don't,
for 8
yeah.
hours. But I'm helping people, right? And it's like, well, your form is not really set up to do this in the way that it's easy for someone else to do this, and they love it, right?
Yeah,
So
they're
it's
people too, and they're not helping themselves.
right, right. They're not being honest with themselves about
Mhm.
where they sit.
Mhm.
So you can do good things and be miserable doing it, which is like half the people who'd run NGOs end up in this spot.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, but it's really a nice formula. Do you know what I mean? To sit with and be like, I need to discern these things, and it can apply to a wide range of circumstances. Zamboni and I have both talked about like waiting tables is actually kind of a great job if you like talking to people. You know, like
Mhm. Or if you need practice
And,
talking to people.
that also. It's
well,
very good for
and
that.
it's funny because I have this idea. It's called Grundwürden. It's German. It means kind of your ground for being.
You just
And it's
dropped,
based-
you just dropped like a heavy German thing. I was slightly distracted by my neighbors downstairs murdering each other, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on over there?" And I just Grund.
Yeah, well, German is one of those languages, but it's based on the Ichikawa diagram, which is this Venn diagram of like if you love it and somebody will pay you for it,
Mm,
you're actually good at it, and if you can find something right in the middle, in that sweet spot in the middle, you're golden, right? Like you're good at it, people need it, you love it, and somebody will give you money. Win. Except that doesn't actually help anyone figure out what to do with themselves in any way, shape, or form. So I have this idea that it's not so much this diagram and you like throw a dart in the middle and go, that must be X. It's this process, and it's for finding your ground for being, which is what Grundwürden means. And the idea is you start with what you know, and then you work through the other sections to get to the end of it. So maybe some people are just entrepreneurial and they know how to make money, but what they've never sat with is what makes them happy. And maybe other people like they know what they love, but they don't yet know what they're good at because maybe they're 19. So maybe that's the next step. Or if you know what you're good at, if you're like, well, I'm a mid-career professional and I'm good at these 12 things, but you never really thought about what the world is actually needs, not just
mm,
what someone will pay you for, but what the world needs and how to leverage your skills to do that. And it's just like a process of working through those. Like, where are you at now? Which is always the goal thing, right? Like, where's your ground now? Wherever you go, there you are. And then What do you need to figure out to try to find your way to some meaningful work in the world, which you're good at, because it's hard to keep working at something that you really don't, it's not right for your form, right? Um, you're you like, right? You love to do, that maybe the world actually could use, right? The value it's manifesting is useful and good, and maybe you can actually pay your bills with it. And if you can work your way through the process and kind of align those, then you are golden. And you're golden whether that means you get to have a private island or whatever, but maybe it's also golden if you're just living a super meaningful life and not struggling with the stress of, like economic troubles, but it's a simple, beautiful life where you make meaning.
Mhm.
And everybody has to do their own math. Everybody has to do their own math homework on it.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have made it to the end. Oh, what you got there? It's all blurry.
I am going to read you a poem. I brought a poem to class today. It's not
Oh,
mine.
snap.
It's from my good friend Hannah Larrabee, but I thought I'll unblur it so people can see the book. The book's called The Observable Universe. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought before we got on today, I was like, I think this is going to be relevant. I think this is going to feel like it applies. And we've been talking about observing the universe and figuring things out and doing everything else. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. But anyway, I saw this today and I just wanted to share it with you guys because I thought the two of you would also find it lovely. So we're going to do that, and then we can sign off. It's called Home is a Rogue Planet Careening Through Interstellar Space. In some dark corner of some elaborate library of the cosmos, there is a book loosely held together. More a suggestion of a book, but a book nonetheless, where it is written that I will not feel home anywhere in this life, though the search continues as the soul, carved through time and God's attention, has its own memories of a time when home was a wheat field or an outcropping of rock, or maybe it was not on earth at all. And what this has done to me is make me love the infinite. Space, yes, but also the well-trodden deer path through a vernal wetland near the Saco River, where I camped once and was awoken suddenly by something hitting my tent, then car so hard the antenna was still rattling by the time I unzipped and looked out with my small flashlight. Once I sat with my feet over the side of the bed and put my head in my hands and prayed for whatever was meant for me to come. And the rest of the time I have been trying to find it by loving each thing I encounter on earth so much that the final flicker of the tail of a red squirrel hit by the car in front of me feels like someone scraping the last of something from the container of my heart. And that's just it, really. Why contain it? Even at the level of atoms, we are barely held. What beckons when we look up at the stars is that someday we have to leave, or be ourselves only in transfiguration. Like God, home is a word that knows when you mean it. Someday it will dissolve upon my tongue.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
Hannah's
beautiful.
good. But yeah, I thought you two could both appreciate the feeling in that particular poem. So
And thank you
Mm-hmm.
for letting me come and chat with you guys today. It's amazing to see you both, Zamboni. Good luck with
Mm-hmm.
your big move.
Thank you. Thank you. We baby steps over here. Yeah, thanks so much for coming. It's been a delight to have you on this time.
Oh God, yeah, thank you. It's been a joy, and it's wonderful to just sort of chat and talk philosophy and kind of dig deep,
yeah,
right,
Mm-hmm.
into the stuff that's behind all the practical stuff that I typically focus on. So it feels really nice.
Yeah,
it's just good
dig
to hear
it.
your thoughts. And like this is what we love about this is a chance to just talk, real talk with people. So
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
thank you guys.
so
Yeah.
So for everyone at home, don't forget that I am wrong more often than I'm right. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all y'all. You can go to wilkinsbryan.com, go get a geomancy reading. You can go to circlethrice.com. Ivy, what type of shit you got at circlethrice.com? What can the people get? They don't heard you be brilliant for the last 2 hours. What's up?
So I have books and courses. I have personal consulting in case you have big goals and dreams and want to sit down with someone who has the experience to help you work through them. And I have the Inner Circle membership, which allows you to get your hands on a cool magical planner that tells you kind of what each day is good for and what kind of magic you should be doing. So, get shit done, do more magic. That's what I do.
That's what's
and then,
up.
of course, don't forget that you can head over to zambonifunk.com and get yourself a serious astro reading. Get your year aheads, get your horary electional charts.
I don't do horary. I do electional charts.
I don't know the difference between those things. Look, if you got something coming up and you want to make sure the timing's good, talk to Zamboni about it. That's what I'm saying.
That's what's up. I do elections. I do a monthly electional report where you can get all the every day or days to wait as well. Yeah, I do personalized elections for like weddings and business launches and all that sort of thing. I also do readings of all sorts. I do music. There's merch. You can get hoodies with my face on there. It's pretty dope. There's a bunch of shit. You can find it all at zambonifunk.com. Thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to Ivy. Thank you to DB. Appreciate all y'all for checking us out, and I look forward to seeing y'all next time. Peace and blessings, family.
Peace and blessings.